What's up, folks? Addy Ads here, your intelligence officer for the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. The jury continues deliberations. Week 5, day 1. Addy Ads is still here in New York City, Manhattan, New York, the city that always sheeps, as I tweeted on the Twitters not too long ago. Just a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke there, but want to get to what happened today. A bit more than you would realize as far as jury deliberations go. Usually it's a lot of hurry up and wait. But uh, for those that don't know, I did get disallowed into the courtroom today. And once again, we are disallowed from streaming to Twitter, which is by far and away my greatest viewership, some 20,000 strong. I'm going to thank all of you guys. I'm sorry I can't stream to Twitter. Hopefully, you guys click on the Rockfin link because that is where I'm sending people now, is to Rockfin, whether it's on my Patreon subscribe star or buy me a coffee. So, that being said, why did I get disallowed from entering the courtroom? Re entering the courtroom, to be more precise. Because if you have been following me up to the point today, by the way, I want to wish everybody a very happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. I hope everyone had a great Christmas break. We are in the last week of the year. What a year it has been. We can maybe have a year in review stream at the end of this week, but we're just discussing week 5, day 1 of the Maxwell trial here. As I mentioned, I got disallowed. I tried to re enter the courtroom uh, around 4 o'clock today. I had to be on a show around noonish. I think it was noon 30 today, so I had to leave the courtroom before attempting, not succeeding, attempting to go back in. I encountered a marshal I had never seen before up to that point. I guess there are marshals taking time off to spend time with family, which is totally understandable. It is that time of the year. And he didn't allow me to enter the courthouse because I didn't have press credentials, official press credentials. I showed him my uh, business card of the people I'm working with for this trial. That did nothing. And he said, "Have a nice day, sir." Was not very polite, I will say. He wasn't a total a hole, but he definitely was very short with me. I would to say the least. You kind of deal with that being a young male in the United States. The powers that be are often in the form of mid to low IQ grunts who enjoy the control over other people that they have, limited it may be. I thought it was best to fight another day, so I complied. I told another reporter that, and they found it hard to believe. He said, "You should send an email, CC me, and I will support you on that complaint." So I may actually wind up doing that. I did get to meet up with Matthew Russell Lee of Inner City Press, the legend. He's becoming known as, thanks in part mostly to his great work. But I'm trying to really beef him up attention wise. He will be joining us unless the verdict is called during the show or right before the show tomorrow. It should be 3:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OG Shaun Attwood. And that'll be tomorrow, as I mentioned. If you haven't given me your email yet, please do so, and I should be able to add you. It's going to be 8:10 to 10 p.m. United Kingdom time. Pardon me there. Similar to the roundtable that Joe Neerman had on his Good Logic channel last week, which was fantastic. Really big shout out to Mr. Neerman for doing that. He's one of two lawyers covering this trial here in Manhattan, New York, Southern District, New York City. Possibly the only litigator. I haven't asked Mr. Lee too much about his own lawyering experience, but I did tweet out a article by Amanda Derich, and she's got an interesting job. She actually interviews and reports on reporters and journalists and writers and intelligence analysts uh, as opposed to writing about the story. So kind of a meta job that Amanda Derrish has. Very good short read. She wrote up on Mr. Lee. I tweeted out in case people want to check that out at one Addy Ads. But let's get into what's been going on today. Before that, I got to say the best dressed lawyer has been Bobby Sternheim, bar none. We can have a debate about that another time. Those of you who have seen the lawyers, the jury came out a couple times today to make some requests. The first one was in the morning. They requested different colored post-it notes, white paperboard, markers, and highlighters, as well as the transcript of Matt, who is the boyfriend of Jane. Not only that, they requested a precise definition of the word enticement. And the definition that they went with was entice, attract, induce, or lure using hope or desire. And Christian Everdale tried to assert different cases from the past in the United States versus various plaintiffs, where they discussed the definition of enticement in detail. So that was cited. They also requested the transcript of Gregory Parkinson, who was the fingerprint analysis expert, crime scene investigation expert advisor, now retired officially, formerly of the Palm Beach Police Department, who conducted the search and seizure video, which can be found on the internet. I'm pretty sure very readily on YouTube, of Epstein's mansion at 358 El Brio Way. So let that be known, and hopefully we are going well on Rockfin here. Let me make sure that's going well. It takes a minute to boot up sometimes, so pardon me on that, folks. That's where I'm trying to send people. Sometimes it takes a bit to get into the live stream, but usually the replay is there. But it looks like we're going strong now, and people can actually tip there as well. But again, the transcript of Gregory Parkinson, his catchphrase during his witness examination was true. Mostly a logistical testimony, I would say, testifying to the physical location of the house, the rooms, the description of the rooms, what they appeared like, the location of the rooms, the location of the photos that were taken, where the picture was taken in relation to the direction that they were facing. He had a great memory. It was in October of 2005 that search and seizure was conducted. So why are they requesting that? Very logistical testimony, right? Is it to compare, along with Matt's testimony, who is the ex-boyfriend of Jane, to Jane's for corroborative detailing, corroborative litmus testing? That's what many people thought could have been the case there. I've talked to a couple people too about how Nathan assessed the jury. It seems she seems to be rushing the jury. She seems to want to get this done and over with sooner rather than later. And also was brought up the somewhat skeptical viewpoint of perhaps she wants to rush this forward to accelerate her promotion, which is another thing overhanging this jury because there's, this trial. There's a lot of things that I would say influence this trial more so than what's actually going on in the trial itself. And those are the preconditions of the trial. What are the preconditions? A lack of a call-in line, limited witnesses, limited testimony because of those limited witnesses, limited evidence being admitted, just 40 photos out of some 39,760 in just one tranche alone that was referenced. Again, the FBI has many more instances of tranches they've collected from Epstein and Maxwell too, I'm sure, that we're probably not hearing about. Why was there evidence tags, evidence stickers, whatever you want to call them? Right? Somebody had qualms on that on Twitter. Evidence, documents of these hard drives and other evidence already found there. And this is testified by Kelly McGuire, who is the lead supervisor on that search and seizure of the 9 East 71st Street townhouse. Why was that there? Why did Epstein have in his possession hard drives and other evidence that had already been processed by the FBI, such that those evidence tags were there? That's a great question. Kelly McGuire did not know the answer to that question, and she works for the FBI. So why is that? Why is Nathan trying to maybe persuade the jury to come to a decision sooner? That seems a bit uncharismatic of someone with a high degree of knowledge of jurisprudence and how that is affected. A lot of questions here, but it does look like we will go at least until the afternoon tomorrow. I would say it could be longer, and that was something too that was mentioned by somebody I talked to earlier today. With the jury asking for the definition of enticement and Matt's testimony, it could take a while. And I know a lot of us are itching for the conclusion here. This is Act 3, right? This is the final act. Uh, Epstein's death, that was the end of Act 2. Ghislaine Maxwell's trial is Act 3. And we're hoping a new play gets conjured up because we do want them to go both up the chain and down the chain. Down the chain being Sarah Kellen, Nadia Marcinkova, Claire Hazel, Eileen Guggenheim, Leslie Groff. We got, Ross, what's her name? Adriana Ross, to name a few, among many others. Mark Epstein, 301 East 66th Street. I was there just last week. And I know I mentioned I was going to get to a field trip today. Please pardon me for that, folks. That's going to have to be postponed tomorrow. And just for you guys, it's going to be a double field trip. So we're going to make it happen, especially if I get disallowed from the courtroom again. I'm going to have a lot of free time on my hands during the day. So that being said, I do have to be back in my makeshift studio here in Manhattan for Shaun Attwood's roundtable, which I'm really looking forward to. Should be fantastic. And that being said, let's go a little bit deeper into the just checking out the comments here in what happened today. I think that's okay. Looks like we're good on Rockfin. That's fantastic to see. Give me a second here, folks. Okay. Assistant U.S. Attorney, and this is at 10:28 a.m. Maxwell was brought out of her holding cell. Judge Nathan said, I have a note. We need highlighters, office supplies, post-it notes, and a whiteboard, and a definition of enticement. Assistant U.S. Attorney Pomerantz, on page 21 of your instruction, you define enticement in its ordinary, everyday meaning. That's what they should be told. Nathan then stared at her computer. Everdale said, there are cases defining enticement. I don't have them at hand. Nathan, I have one. U.S. versus Almonte. Is that what you have in mind, Mr. Everdale? Everdale responds, I think we cited a case in our Rule 29 argument on causation, too. Nathan said in response, I will write, Dear jury, we are gathering supplies. On enticement, see the jury charge. Sternheim says, Ms. Maxwell has been given an N95 mask, but she's being told to only wear it in the courtroom. The rule is in the courthouse, says Nathan. I will speak to the district executive's office. All rise. Maxwell was then let out of the courtroom by 2 U.S. Marshals. 2:55 p.m. after more than 3 hours of radio silence. So I really didn't miss a whole lot with my interview there. But for the fact I get disallowed into the courthouse. Bobby Sternheim has returned to the defense table. The prosecutors too, where it is jury note. Ghislaine Maxwell out of the holding cell at 3 p.m. with 2 U.S. Marshals. Sits at the defense table, and Nathan says the jury writes, can we please have the testimony of David Rogers, one of 2 Epstein pilots, to just testify at the trial, and the more senior of the pilots between himself and Vysotsky, although he did transition to Vysotsky's position in the early 2000s, taking the assistant pilot position while Vysotsky took over as chief. Nathan said, I don't know what time the jury wishes to deliberate to this evening. I assume we'll get a note. We'll wait for that. If they're not done today, I'll consider extending deliberations into tomorrow for at least some period of time. Sternheim replied, I think this jury has a mind of its own. They declined to deliberate last Thursday. Nathan, think about indication of at least some extension of hours tomorrow if they have not completed the task. And Matthew Lee speculated or asserted the idea seems to be that If the jury doesn't decide today, Judge Nathan might tell or encourage them to stay past 5 p.m. tomorrow. A cynic might say, in a hurry to get to the second court, I mentioned that earlier, different judges have different methods. And right at the end of the day, at 4:30 p.m., Nathan returned with a jury note telling the counsel to take a photo of it. I thought photos were banned in federal courts. A convoluted note pertaining to Jane. If the jury can, if it makes certain findings, still render a guilty verdict. At this point in time, around 4:40, 4:35, Maxwell is back at the defense table with lawyers at both sides studying photos of the jury note. The jurors also say they want to end today at 5 p.m. We'll take that up after we address responding to this note. The prosecutors asked for one more moment before arguments on how to respond to the Jane note. Assistant U.S. Attorney, I believe that's Pomerantz, our proposal would be to refer to the jurors to the instructions. We find the question confusing. Everdale said we want the answer to be no. The jurors are clearly separating in their minds the flight to versus the flight from New Mexico. There is no motivating purpose to the return trip. It was not for the purpose of engaging in sexual activity, the return flight. The flight there, maybe. Even Everdale admits that. Although I have to say, one reporter thought that was very clever lawyering by Everdale. And I have to say, I think he's the most talented on the defense. I'm still sticking by that. He has shown me nothing but that to be the case. The only caveat there would be the best dressed, Miss Sternheim. She seems to be the general on the defense team. Although she doesn't get the most spotlight, the most the ball time, I think she is the one who makes most of the decisions for the defense. It seems to be that everyone runs decisions by Bobby Sternheim before they are made for the defense. That's just my assessment. And again, the jury charge was some 80 pages that went over at the, I want to say it was the end of closing arguments on Monday. So Nathan said, it's your contention that to convict on this count, the jury would have to find that the defendant was involved in this aspect of this flight. It's difficult to parse the question. I don't know how much weight to put on that comma placement in the jury question. I can't imagine this ambiguous question. No. The only solution here is to direct them to the full instruction page on page 28. Sternheim said, Your Honor needs to make clear to their juror what state comes after the word new. They need to find a violation of New York law. Nathan said, I do not know what this question means, so I will just direct them back to the count. I am referring them to the instruction. Everdale said, we reiterate our prior objection, to which Nathan said, I'll send the response with the court security officer. Now, on extending the time, you should tell them to expect an extended day tomorrow, said Pomerantz. The defense responded, we think urging the jurors to stay late sends them a message that they need to hurry up and decide. A.S. Pomerantz, it is within the court's discretion. So, again, going back to this idea I mentioned earlier today, the defense wants to prolong this deliberation as long as possible. And Sternheim's very, very cheeky. She's very intelligent, I would say. She wants this, but she's kind of coaxing Nathan into this. She's not trying to reveal what she wants, although I'm sure Nathan knows. Nathan said, I'll tell them if deliberation is not complete tomorrow, I'd like them to stay at least to 6 p.m. I'll take them. They could stay later than 6 unless they indicate to Miss Williams that it's a hardship. I think he means Mr. Williams there, does Mr. Lee. Any suggestion that they should complete their decision, Nathan cut the defense off. I used this language last week. I clearly have discretion to set the default schedule, and I do it over your objection, said the judge. Defense, we ask you not to include that phrase. Nathan says, I'll use the same language I used last week. I'll add, take all the time you need. Bring in the jury. The jury came in, was instructed by Nathan before leaving. Anything further today? No. Adjourned. So that was the meat and potatoes of today, folks. Maybe a bit more eventful than we anticipated, considering it's another jury deliberation day. But there you have it, folks. Addy ads. I'm reporting. I'm trying to keep it. I'm not trying to waste people's time. I don't ramble if I can help it, which is, I would say, 95% of the time. But stay frosty. Let me know what you think. Get at me on Twitter or DMs on Instagram. Buy me a coffee if you want. I actually would buy a tea with it. So to be more literal, buy me a tea. Maybe I should change my thing to buy me a tea. Uh, who knows? I wish I could drink coffee, but it makes my jaw muscles tense up, and it just makes me too anxious. So I no judgment pass though. If you like your coffee, I love my caffeine too. So stay frosty, follow, support, share, and we'll see everybody tomorrow, bright and early.